Hey everybody, it's Z from the Quest. This is going to be about our fundraising, yearly fundraising Christmas rescues. Um, as always, nothing's ever easy, and we made arrangements and we spent a lot of money we didn't have. And the outfit that wanted us to do this backed out on the last day, so we had to scramble to raise some funds, and then some friends came along and really helped us out. So uh, anyways, here we go. Uh, this was pretty difficult. Again, we had prearranged several of these places that we would hit and had troops and people in the places that we needed. Of course, we were always shorthanded on the medical end, but so be it. These girls are destined to die if we don't do something, and so we did. So here we go. It'll be a little long. I hate doing this, but a lot of you don't want to read. So anyway, here we go. Rescue 1 of the Christmas rescues here, the fundraiser. We had arranged several locations to do rescues for our rescue. Since we would have the money, of course, then it didn't happen. So anyways, our volunteers had been watching a brothel that was a big house at the edge of Central City, or City Central. It was backed up against a large hill that became a mountain. There were some trails in the mountain, but not large enough for a normal vehicle. So we arranged for some off-road trail vehicles, um, and the house currently held 23 girls. Our major concern was not to be noticed. We didn't want to be noticed, so and it was kind of an open area, so it was kind of unique in this situation. So anyways, so we'd be entering from the rear. Also, we would create some traffic in the front area. This is pretty normal for cars and trucks and people to have accidents. And also there would be, and there were people that would fight and yell at each other. When this happens, everyone gets noisy, of course, and it will be our people. The teammates will uh, will enter from the rear, neutralize the 3 guards inside, and we'll make sure that there are no Johns are inside at the time. Then our resident nun will enter, and once all is in control, and she will take the 23 girls up the hill to our waiting vehicles. 5 in total. Yep, this was going to be expensive. um, so once the cargo was in place, or would be in place, they'd be taken. There was 2 trails that would exit 2 roads off the mountain. One is pretty busy, so we would have our vans waiting at this one to move the girls to the safe houses. The other trail came out on on a quiet road. We would have spotters everywhere in and off the mountain, especially at the exits where the spotters would be with them all the way to the safe house. The exit for our kids up the mountain. Oops, wait a minute. The exit with our kids up the mountain would be to waiting vehicles. Would be a bit testy, not knowing the full condition of the kids. So the team would be with 7 breaching the house and exit. Another 10 would be hidden on the side of the mountain to assist. Once our kids were en route to the other transportation, these 10 teammates would become our ground spotters once we have our kids to the trail vehicles. We may have problems separating the girls into the 4 transports because some of the girls may have created bonds with other ones while they were in bondage. So that will be addressed quickly when dividing them. The girls will be shy to speak up, so the nun will watch closely as we go up the mountain. The girls are respectively scared of nuns, but they also do as they're told. That is the main reason that we will have the nun enter the brothel with us. Also, 3 female volunteers will be waiting with the transports and ride them with them to the road. They would also stay with them all the way to the safe house, checking on their health, so we would know what to expect at the safe houses. So I gave the go, and the distraction worked better than we thought. All the guards were at the front of the house. There were no Johns inside. So we moved in through the back. All the girls were kept quiet as the nun put her finger to her lips. And all the girls came without hesitation. They all exited the back and up the mountain, and only 2 needed help. It seemed the girls were very weak, and some fell behind and were picked up by our teammates. All was good, and it seemed they accepted us fully. This was not normal, but I think the sight of the nuns made all the difference. 4 teammates stayed inside and waited for the guards to come back in. At this time, all the girls had made it to the transports on the mountain and were en route to the road where they would be changed to the vans. The team waited inside against the walls where the guards would enter once the excitement ended. After about 10 minutes, they all entered, one after the other. They did not notice our team. Once inside, the team closed the door, and with their guns pointed at the guards, one of the teammates put his finger to his mouth, and they complied. They got on their knees with their hands behind their head. Then they were bound and gagged and moved to one of the girls' rooms. Now our teammates exited the back, made their way up the mountain, and had their own transport. The girls made it to the roads, entered the vans, and were off. The assessment of the girls was all were malnourished, but nothing life-threatening. So they all met at the same safe house with no shadows. It was clear they were out of harm's way, and the safe house was very remote. They were all washed and given new clothes and fed well. Each received a small stuffed animal and allowed to rest for a few precious hours. By then they would have more energy. They made it to their destination where they would begin a beautiful life. Rescued was 23, ages 8 to 13. So then it was on to the next rescue. The next target was in another country, this one in City Central, and was more a local brothel where most of the Johns were local. These are some of the worst conditions, and the girls were sold for an hour for as little as $3. This location was in City Central and along a semi-busy street and brightly lit at night. The location was a string of makeshift buildings using scraps of metal, tarps, and anything they could find to make shelter. It was surrounded on all 3 sides with other places that were just the same. To rescue these kids, the routes were plentiful and it was low budget, so our biggest problem would be not to take it lightly. There were 8 girls here, ages 7 to 12 years old. The plan was to set up in front of the rear building in case we would have to breach into the other brothel from there and to watch the occupants of that business. In front, we would casually park 4 transports blocking view from the locals. This was not uncommon for this to occur, so it would be our cover. Our transports would have hidden teammates with drivers exposed who would leave the transport and walk across the street to watch for any threats. The 3rd transport would casually talk to the guard, show interest, and go inside. Then the guard would be put to sleep. The teammate inside would motion for the others to enter. There would be 8 teammates entering, with 4 being female, to gather the girls. One teammate spoke the local language, so she would be in charge of telling the girls what was going on. Then all would be taken to one transport. The route we chose had many back streets till we reached the city limits, and then onto the safe house. Again, there would be spotters along the way to make sure that there wasn't any shadows. So it was time, and I gave the go. With all in place, all went as planned. But one thing was not really expected. Well, it was and it wasn't. The kitchen conditions were so nasty. The smell was like something dead was rotting. There was no plumbing. There were roaches everywhere, even to the point one of our teammates had them all over her. There was one huge rat eating something in the corner, only 10 feet from where one of our girls was. The guard was bound and gagged. The girls had mostly been carried to the transport due to how weak they were. These are brothels where the girls used are used up to 8 to 15 times a day. They're barely fed and never washed. I kind of think you get the picture. En route to the safe house, some of the girls did not seem to be moving or alert. We were in a remote area, and some of our spotters had found a hidden area and made their way to it. They were so weak, our medic determined that they needed water and some food. The travel would make things worse. The spotters took positions to watch the area and let the team know with the kids that if there was any activity. Some of the team who were still in the area of the rescue were informed of the situation and were told to get some food and water and bring it to us. An hour later, they arrived, and with them came one of the local volunteers. They had some nursing experience. She had been too scared to be part of the actual rescue, but was more than willing to help us now. They spent 3 hours at this location helping the girls gain enough energy to travel to the safe house. During this time, one vehicle or person entered our zone. Someone must be looking out for us. So now we were on the move again, and we stopped every half hour to check the girls. Then we made it to the alternative safe house where we could stay longer. It was very remote and safe, yet we followed our protocols and watched the area for anything that we did not like. It was also necessary to clean the kids and take time to feed them, with most of all to show them they were surrounded with loving beings. That would be the best medicine they could get. While there, 2 more nurses arrived and tended to our kids. We waited till the next morning to move out to the home where they would always be taken care of. Rescued 8 on this one, so that made our total for the fundraisers so far at 31. So now we're on to rescue 3 of the night. We did all these in 24 hours. So anyway, we had several teammates at the country border where many of the girls are transported into a region to be sold by middlemen. The girls who are light-skinned, preferably from Vietnam, are sold for a higher value due to their popularity with pedophiles. These girls are sold to more high-end brothels where foreigners come for this purpose. We can watch this happening 24/7 at the borders with as little as $5 to a guard for them to cross over without any questions. These middlemen can easily make $400 for 3 to 4 girls. Considering the average income is $150, this is easy money with an endless supply. I think maybe I should explain a little bit too. At these borders is a place where, like, if you're staying in another country and you'll have, every so often you have to leave that country and then get your passport stamped before you can re-enter the country for another period of time. So they call them visa runs. So this happens on a frequent basis. Plus you have tourists that are coming and going across the border. So therefore what they do is people put up a lot of businesses, restaurants and supplies for food and things like that all through that area for people coming across the border, along with some hotels and things. So it's a busy area. So the teams split up into 5 groups. Most of them are made of our female teammates. They moved all around, looking for a male driver that looked like he may have been transporting children in this area. The border crossing, and many of the, like I said, the nearby business for travelers coming through. So many people crossing would stop and get food supplies they needed. We had several spotters with large areas of view to guide our teammates. It did not take long, and they found a small truck with tarps around the back. One of our teammates approached the truck while the other two mates went inside the store and kept an eye on the driver that was driving the vehicle. Then it was confirmed that he had 4 girls in the back with their legs tied together. There was no key needed to start the truck, so the teammate signaled to the team inside the store and to the spotter to inform the rest of the group. She took the truck and drove away with spotters in front and behind and headed to the safe house that we had arranged. The driver inside saw what was happening, but our teammates showed him a reason to be quiet. They walked out of the store and to a more private area where he was informed that he would be taken to a safe place far from the border and relieved of his phone. His arms and legs and mouth would be restrained, but still able to walk with difficulty. This would give us the time to make more rescues at the border. These girls were 7 and 9, taken to the safe house just out of town. They were unbound and informed fully of what would happen next. The girls had not been in the brothel yet, so they were in okay health. So this rescue was 4. So that makes the total for the fundraisers 35. And then we got to rescue 4 of the night, and so we're still at the border, and just after the last rescued girls were safe, another target appeared. A teammate approached the vehicle and found another mini truck with a deep bed and a roof. Inside were 3 girls. The girls the truck was barely running and in really bad shape. The tires were also bad, and there was a concern that the truck would not fit our needs to safely get our kids to where they were headed. The driver, still inside his truck and texting on his phone and laughing. Other teammates closed in and stood a short distance. We did not want to interrupt his texting for obvious reasons. Then when he was finished, he put the phone on the seat and began to exit the truck. The teammate next to the door convinced him to move over, and at the same time, teammate entered the passenger side, and another teammate got into the rear of the truck with the girls and kept them calm. We took the truck out of town, several other teammates in front and in behind. We had one of our transports meet them well outside of town. They got to the meetup point ahead of our new truck with our cargo. We half expected that this truck would not make it, and if it did not, we could easily go get it. Well, it made it, and we transferred our wonderful cargo. The driver was bound and gagged like the last one, and we took his phone and then cut his tires to his truck. The girls were taken to the same safe house as the others from the border, and again, they had not worked in a brothel, so they also were in okay condition. It was not long, and they were taken to their new home. Rescued this time 3, That makes the fundraiser total 38 at this time, still on our 24-hour clock. And so now we had another rescue. Even as bad as every one that we've had before, this one was really, really horrible. And I think it's America's fault that a lot of this is happening. So we returned to where we had done another rescue not too long ago. So here we go. Due to the recent disaster at the U.S. border, we have been preparing for another rescue there. There are so many infant children with these caravans that are sold to illegals to carry across the border. We had to return. As before, we could confirm that the male taking the child with him on the caravans was not his child. So it was easy to tell. In recent weeks, we had only found one child with one of its actual parents. Nearly all these kids are not with their parents. These children are abused. They're dragged across the ground. They're beaten. They're carried like luggage, starved, and many times left in the desert once they cross the border. All for the cartel and to get a free pass into the United States of America. This is what's coming into our country right now. One thing I might mention is that when we were down there the last time, we saw a whole bunch of these trees on the border that had clothes draped on them. And me being naive, I had no idea what I was looking at. And what they're called is rape trees. This is where they take these kids, not the infants that we're getting, but then again, maybe, but they would rape these women and children. And then they would take their clothes and they'd throw them up in the trees. And so they're called rape trees. And I'm telling you, they were everywhere. So even at the river, on little islands in the middle of the river. So anyways, we had to go there. During our last rescue, we would approach a person with a kid, and if he did not resist at all, then we took the child. We had no interest, or they had no interest. Also, we watched the cartel member see us, but he just went on with what he was doing. The last rescue we did here, we had room for far more kids than we rescued. It just got so risky at what we were doing, and we were able to move so freely, even though that we had the entire community behind us. We just felt that it would have been safe we get what we had and get out. This time we came in full force, so, and the entire community was behind us. They gave us everything that we needed, and they were willing to do more. And there were also several area homes that housed kids, fully opened their doors to us and volunteered to spot for us. And also we had medical waiting for the rescued. This was just really unusual for us and something we're not used to, because we had politicians, we had police, we had store owners, mostly store owners, because the illegals that were crossing through there had just decimated their stores and things and stolen. There were rapes and murders going on constantly around us, and so we had to focus on what we were there for. So anyway, we'll have the same approach this time, by going to men alone with a child and ask them where their mother is, and they will respond. Same thing every single time. Head fight, I took the child. Then we take the child, and if there is no resistance, then we take the child to the people that will care for them. Now we are about to do the same thing. The team had made its way into the far south of the country and made arrangements with the locals in the area that had requested us, business owners, police, government officials, and local people who were all horrified by the current circumstances. All these great people were in fear of the cartel, and at the same time wanted to do something for these kids, infants, That was why we were here, and so it began. We had spotters on top of buildings, on streets, in stores. We also had 3 buses waiting to take our kids to safety. They will travel to remote places out of town and then be moved into smaller local transports. We will have an abundance of teammates along each path and many transports. The buses will have local nuns that have opened the doors for about as many kids as we can get. So much like before, we will have teams of 4 search and be guided to the infants and tiny children for us to verify are not with parents, and most likely taken or sold to the cartel to be resold to illegals to take across the border. It is in the desert where many of will be left to die. So it's on one by one, even sometimes 2 at a time. These poor little kids, most were sick or hurt, many with open sores on their feet and legs. We saved them. In the first 15 minutes, we had 5. The teams would scan the area for any cartel and then grab the kids that were without parents or relatives. Another 15 minutes, we had another 7 in the buses. All these kids had to be carried due to the sores on their feet and legs. Then 20 minutes later, another 7. 15 minutes later, 12 more. There were many fights and women being taken away from the crowds for bad reasons. We tried to keep a distance and not to be noticed. 25 minutes more and we got another 9, and then another 4. 6 on this patrol. Then we made our way to the Coliseum where there were all these officials and many illegals. We stayed close to those who had asked for our help. As we did, we grabbed more infants, 23 on this patrol. Now we were now gathering attention, and known cartel had spotted us. We got the kids to the buses, and they were on their way out. While we were all leaving the area, one of our teammates, you may know from a previous rescue, the female Marine, as we call her, saw a little girl standing in the middle of the street where our buses were leaving. She was about 4 years old, maybe 5. I don't know. It was hard to tell. Old and crying and looking at the Marine. Well, the Marine did not hesitate. She could talk the girl's language and found out she wanted to go with us. The Marine asked her several questions, and she had been sold to cartel. The man who was taking her was killed in a fight a few hours ago, and she asked if she could come with us. Add one more. So the teams made it into the outer city and filled several transports to take the abused kids to safe houses to be treated and cleaned up. We did not have the funds at this time for new clothes, but they were washed. Most of the kids, including the infants, were badly injured or badly bruised with cuts and sores on their feet and legs. A lot, had bruises from where you could see they were being carried by their arm and drug. Mostly, even more of them had injuries to their face, neck, and arms. Now they were divided up and headed towards their new homes, where the only fears they would have would be from the nuns. So this rescue was 74 by the time we finished. The fundraising total for this Christmas was 112, and so that makes our grand total since 2015, 2,285 little kids saved from certain death. We are the best in the world. Nobody can compare to us. All of our actions are just. They may not fit the criteria that is expected, but that's why we are successful. So I thank all of you that stand behind us. Here we are, EndingChildSexSlavery.org, or the Quest ECSS. If you can help us in any way, we appreciate it. You know, it helps. We won't stop doing this, and we're going to get even more fierce here soon. The COVID thing has kind of delayed a lot of what we're doing, so that we can't show you as much as we would like to yet, but it will soon be happening. So anyway, bless all of you. Hope you had a great Christmas, and Happy New Year. This is Zaysan from the Quest, ECSS, out.